Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Retail Technology Conclave Online 2021 edition. Today, we are going to talk about digital transformation, change beyond technology. Digital transformation is a buzzword that has taken the world by the storm, especially in the last 1.5 to 2 years. From a broad perspective, digital transformation is about bringing in new technology and digitizing the business processes. However, if you dig in deeper and take a closer look, there is a lot more to it than just technology implementation. What does it take to make digital transformation a business reality? How does digital transformation really take? Is it just about technology, or there's more to digital transformation than that? With this, I would like to start today's panel discussion. We have got an esteemed panelist with us, and I would start my first question with Dr. Anil. Dr. Anil, digital transformation is what has saved retail during these unprecedented times. Can you please tell us, from Landmark Group perspective, how you have transformed into true omni-channel from a traditional retail? How did that digitalization and that digital transformation happen?
Thank you, Hitesh ji, and thanks RAI for organizing such an important topic actually for the current times. And I think as Hitesh ji in fact alluded earlier, digital transformation is what has really saved all of us actually in the last probably 2 years or so. I mean, I still actually dread those days in the mid-March to the third week of March, when the so-called actually COVID hit us really it's one of those TV ads. Actually, even now we are trying to comprehend and digest that, right? So earlier to that, we were actually doing brick and mortar business, we were doing online business, and we were trying to take the online business from say single digits into probably the 5s and even double digits into 10s and things like that. But it was a slow journey, so to say, because we had online dedicated inventory separately kept, because we wanted to make sure that the B2C customers are taken care of, especially. And brick and mortar inventory was separately, spread across almost like 350 stores across the country, right? Particularly from Max perspective, when I'm talking about, we had actually quite segmented our cellular inventory and other things actually that we had. We had separate teams to manage actually both the back end as well as the front end and so on. Now, what happened actually during COVID is that even though we were asked to shut down and all our stores were shut, our warehouses were supposed to be shut actually during the first wave and all that, very quickly within about 4 to 6 weeks into the lockdown, we realized actually, because we were continuously in touch with our loyal customers, we kept on kind of, engaging with them, trying to understand what are their needs and so on. Because in the scheme of things, we all forgot in India, roti, kapda, makan was always a basic necessity for humankind, right? But somehow magically we forgot about kapda in the middle. We were worrying about roti, we were worrying about the makan actually, right? So all of a sudden kapda became such a big deal actually of discussion. So particularly young women actually is our customer. So I always call our customers as the queen. In fact, customer is not the king for me as an apparel retailer. Customer is the queen for me, because it is that young lady with a smartphone in her hand who dictates my fate as a retailer. So what happened was, in the month of May itself last year, we started getting a lot of feelers about kids will never stop growing, whether you're at home or actually outside. So they wanted kids wear, they wanted easy wear and all that. So the demand was actually increasing by the day. Therefore, what we had to quickly do was, in the name of digital transformation, we really had to integrate the back-end processes, integrate the inventory, integrate actually the tech side of it. We had to use the tools very quickly to make sure that all our operations had to be, seamless. In fact, whether you are actually a brick and mortar or online or a digital channel, what all we have seen actually during 18 months, right? We have seen WhatsApp selling, we have seen, wheels, fashion on wheels, we have seen venue sales we have done. So literally apparel retail went to the customer no matter where she was. That is exactly the true omni journey, what I would like to really reflect upon. So It doesn't matter wherever customer was. Customer could see us anywhere. Customer could wish us from anywhere. We had to supply. Whether I supplied from my store or from my warehouses or other hubs and all that. So we really had to integrate the backend processes to really become a true omni player. What is that? An omni retail is whether we are doing brick and mortar or online or digital or social media, whatever it is, customer had to be serviced actually. In doing so, we had to put all the processes, actually, we had to realign the processes and make sure that we see single bucket of inventory. We see single transaction between the retailer and the customer. So this is a journey what we really, ended up actually embracing in the last 18 months. And probably in the next couple of questions, we can get into the detail. So in my opinion, Hitesh, that's exactly what the omni journey for us through the digital transformation. It's an excellent example, actually. Thank you.
Sure. Indeed, case study by itself, Anilji, and we'll delve more deeper into it as we go on. Satish, from an Arvind Group perspective, how have you, dealt with the transformation of digital transformation? And, did you start it way back, or was it at the onset of COVID? And, what changes you had to make to start with, Satish?
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Hitesh, for having me again. And it's obviously given the context we are in. I think everything about digitalization is obviously more about humans rather than about machines, right? So I think that's the first thing that has kind of dawned upon us, at least as we get into the thick and thin of automation and digitizing processes and eventually digitalization of journeys, right? So. I think from an Arvind perspective, we were probably more in the high single digits in terms of the channel share of merchandise from the apps channel or from the marketplace channels or from our own now.com. But I'm really happy to say that over the last 18 months we've kind of graduated from mid to low single digit to almost 35% of our revenue base actually coming out of the digital commerce, right? And to me, if I really break down the details of this journey, it is obviously the selling, the revenue coming out of online, the profitable sales are very important components. But how do you really realize this journey? Is an idea in itself. And I think every company goes through their own phases of maturity. So as one would imagine that it's probably little to do about how good or how flowy your app is or your website experience is. It's probably more to do with the kind of flexibility and adaptability that you had as an organization to actually move to a different way of selling, right? Or a different way of providing customer experience. So, broadly, I would say there are probably 2-3 examples, right, which kind of fit into the digital journey, what it encompasses. So one is, creating an agile supply chain, right, which is bereft of some of the traditional notions of season-wise planning, because we are in fast fashion, and inherently we would like to think of our seasons as as close to a month, if not lesser. But again, market conditions normally demand that you typically plan for at least 2 broad seasons every year, and then you go through the whole plan, buy, sell, move sell cycles. And I think that from a supply chain perspective has significantly transformed, right, in terms of us looking at our merchandise more from a core value prop perspective or a core plus value prop perspective rather than a seasonal merchandise perspective, right? While that is absolutely important for a fast fashion retailer, I think we also duly recognize that it's always how do you calibrate that percentage and how do you really make your supply chain react to the changing demand patterns and how quickly you're able to sense those demands rather than having to going with a fixed notion of a season, right? I think that was probably one underlying theme around the agile supply chain. The second thing is obviously around the customer experience. I think in today's day and age, obviously we want our customers to go beyond a transaction or a basket size or a wallet size, right? It's more of a relationship, and that's where our integration with social tools and the CRM has really we have a journey to take it off edge and then take it to the next level, because ultimately you grow with the customer and customer kind of grows with you, and that's a virtuous cycle beyond the transactions. And I think I will stop it with the last point, which is essentially around the resilience of the business itself, right? I think retail resilience has always come under question in various times of period in history, right? Be it a war in a country or a region, or a pandemic, or or just a general slowdown in economy and stuff like that, right? So normally retailers have tend to react to a lot of these stimuli in terms of creating their own operating models. But I think some fundamentals should not change as we create this operating model, and digitization should really be at the core of this fundamental, right? So that we don't kind of have, we don't give the experience of being a fly by night kind of an operation, right? Today you did something in a particular way and tomorrow you did the same thing in a different way, right? I think discovering that and getting that thread integral to your resilience journey was actually equally important, and I think digitalization played a significant role in that, right? So with that I will conclude, Dr. Hitesh. Thank you.
Thanks, Satish. 35% of the revenue from digital commerce is phenomenal, and that's the testimony of how retail in India is transforming. And you spoke about agile SCM, even Anilji spoke about backend integration and so on and so forth. We'll come on these topics, we'll talk about the challenges, etc. But I will now move to Balaji and welcome Balaji to this. The first question, you are handling one of the biggest, or let me say the biggest pharma chain in the country. Before you start, I just want to know about the operations, about the Apollo Group in terms of the chains and the hospital, etc.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Hitesh. So good evening, everyone. So just to tell about the Apollo Pharmacy, it's an amazing organization. It's a chain of pharmacy. We have around 4,200 outlets across the country. So we had a connected back-end warehouse management and supply chain system across the country. So it is part of Apollo Hospital Enterprise Limited, and we handle this vertical led by Ms. Shobna Kamini. She is a vice chairperson, and P. Jaykumar is the CEO of the company. So I heads the technology. So I have 25 years of expertise in healthcare and the pharma retailing business, heading the technology. And first, I thank Roy for setting up this intensive converge of technology professional, which I could able to see from the panel and the panelists and attendees all together here. So about the digitalization and the other part, when you ask about me, for us the digitalization is the plainly we can able to see our unified customer experience. That is a core expectation of our thing we can able to deploy when we go into the technology. And towards the digital maturity, we always see the positive business impact. It may be coming from the customer satisfaction or employee engagement or the revenue growth. These three are the pivotal. And over the digital era in last 5 years, what we did as Apollo Pharmacy is we started moving our all on-premises infrastructure into the cloud-based technology. We used multi-cloud environment, as well as we deployed the end-to-end ERP for all our backend and replenishment, because any of the digital, when you move in, we should have a strong internal digitalization. Otherwise, we could not able to achieve what the customer experience and other thing is required. So we implemented that as a whole, and the smarter workflow implementation is a need of the business, and the cyber security defenses and other thing we have to have the complete strengthening, and other thing we have to have it. This is what we have done. And as Mr. Anil and Mr. Satish told, whenever we want to have a good front-end system, we should have a stronger back-end. So we focus much on the back-end, SCM and other part of it. So most of the process we need to automate completely, where we have to use the cobots and other thing. So because the volumes of the business is very high comparatively to any other retail, it is very high comparatively. We have to manage 10 lakh line per day on the sales and other thing. It create a huge volume of the data. So with that, we could able to manage it because it is a cloud hosted and horizontally scalable technology. We could able to manage with that.
Thank you, Mr. Balaji. Before I come to Santosh, I would like to ask Subhajit this question. You know that the consumer behavior has shifted due to COVID and post-COVID. And when I say post-COVID, COVID is still there, but relatively the last 1.5 years plus, we consider today as post-COVID because our experience has gone up and our resilience has gone up. And what are the implications to technology and beyond that, Subhajit? If you can, share and throw some light on that, please.
Sure. Thanks, Hitesh, and thanks to all the panelists. I have the fortune of knowing some of them, even during business. So I know how they have traversed this journey over the last 14 to 16 months that we've seen the new normal. We actually did some study in terms of how the consumer shifts are happening, and it's been changing and evolving a little bit through the journey of COVID. If you look at the 14, 16 months, the sentiments of consumers were very different at the beginning, and then it kind of evolved. There was a bit of euphoria after wave one, which led to again wave two, because everybody thought it's over and we are back to normal. And then wave two happened, which completely brought us down. So there generally has been a shift towards categories and products and brands that kind of stand for value and stand for being essentials. So instead of doing a lot of discretionary spend, I think the spend has kind of shifted and channelized towards specific categories, specific brands, and people are a little more mindful in terms of where they put their money. So that's a general trend that's happened over these months. The second is, I think there was a whole segment of customers who were sitting outside the fence, who were not in the purview of omni-channel or e-commerce or digital retail or whatever you call it, right? They were seniors, they were people who were in different straight off cities and towns in our country, or there were simply people who preferred the physical touch and feel of retail, and they chose to stay outside that fence. I think COVID kind of forced this acceleration towards adoption of digital. So first it began with a sense and understanding that, this is the only way to do it now. So we have to get onto it. And I know of people beyond a certain age and demographic boundaries who chose to learn how UPI works, how apps can be installed, how do you access catalogs and so on and so forth. So there was a whole induction of new customer segments who came in. And the good news is once they come in, they don't go out. So today, if let's say Satish is saying 35% of his sales is coming from digital commerce, in compared to, even a few years back, even 10% would be a very good number for a business, claiming that e-commerce contributed to 10% of the overall top line. So if that 35% has happened, my optimistic self tells me that 35% is going to increase a little bit, and it's not going to be at the cost of the other offline customers. So offline is going to grow, online is also going to grow, and therefore the total pie is going to grow because a lot of people have come in and started experimenting on both the channels. The other thing I think that has happened is brand loyalty has kind of got disrupted, because you were loyal to certain brands for certain categories and you had a mechanism of kind of working with those brands. And when suddenly these things were disrupted, the stores were not available, the malls were not available, you had to choose substitutes and other options. And now that you've stuck to it for a long time, possibly that loyalty is not going to come back anymore, unless that brand has been very active in terms of retaining it and reviving it. And the final thing that I think I'll end with is consumers are much more home-centric today. So engagement, experience, anything that you say has to have a home-centric perspective. the experience literally has to be delivered at their homes, within their homes. So be it apparel, be it home fashion, whatever the categories which Anil deals with, uh, everything has to be tried and trialed at home. You have to give the same uh, shopping mall, retail store experience at the home. If you degrade it, you basically lose the customer.
Exactly. If you degrade it, you lose the customer. And that's what digital transformation is all about, friends. And that's what we are discussing with the stalwarts out here. Let me go to Santosh. And Santosh, you heard Balaji is talking about, unified customer experience and, digital cloud-based technology end-to-end ERP implementation. We also heard about integrated SCM, etc. How, according to you, you envision digital transformation, aligned to business outcomes for your customers, changes beyond technology. So if you can throw some light on that, Santosh.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Hitesh, and my co-panelists. I think it's a really honor to be sharing a platform with you all. I look after the food and beverage vertical at Retail Consumer Goods at Tech Mahindra. And in last 1.5 years, I think we all know we have gone through this pandemic, and we have seen what it has shown in terms of supply chain, broken systems, and people throwing hair, disruption, disputes, delays everywhere. So in totality, if you see, digital transformation has been the backbone of the economy around the world, not just India. So it has actually saved everybody. Be it the work from home, you take a rise of e-commerce, you take digital payment synergy, you take home delivery systems, you take digital marketing, everybody, and all of them have been enabled by today's technology of cloud migration, microservice architecture, and all it. But see, these are good ideas. But if you see and come up at the top, and if you try to look and generalize what is driving all those things, what I'm like, Subhajit had mentioned that these all things are accelerated, right? These were present before, but now they kind of have taken a momentum. So what took it, and what's the driving force behind it? So if I see it as my point of view, digital transformation, if you take the word, split the word and see the transformation exercise into it, transformation in by itself, it's very subjective exercise for the organization. It's not one solution fits all. It's not like cloud will solve this for you, customer experience will solve this for you. It has to be a calculated decision for a particular organization, and hence the organization has to discover for themselves what they want to transform. Is it a physical transformation, cultural transformation, or is it a digital transformation? And since we are talking about digital today, I'm like, the whole landscape it's very big. It all starts with customer experience. I think before this session, Chika mentioned about it. It all starts with customer experience, and there are 4 other outcomes also which we look after when we talk about business outcomes. But majority is the customer experience, which is like, if you see the direct to consumer model, the new business models are emerging: buy anywhere, deliver anywhere, return anywhere. These are the convenience which customer expects today out of any brand, any organization, so that it's his shopping experience is more convenient, is easy. He can, the digital platform system across omni-channel commerce, if you see the synergy between online and in-store. And so if I talk about some of the examples which I see while serving my customers, some of the transformation from minor to major, from simple online website development to complete IT transformation or IT sourcing projects. That's the one transformation. But why it is happening? It's happening to make sure the end customer needs are met, and what as a business they want to achieve. If you see from the supply chain and resilient supply chain, simple demand forecasting exercise to a complete autonomous supply chain today. We are looking at resilient supply chain. Recently, we conducted a study with RIS News, and we found one of the 3 major bottlenecks. Out of them, one was inability to respond during the fluctuations. It's a very simple ask, but major 90% of the organization today don't have this capability to look into their supply chain and respond. It's not that they are not capable enough. It's just that they don't have the visibility. Systems, it's not about digital transformation. It's about connectivity, synergy of the systems, the agility around it, the resilience. It's the outcome of it, what we expect. So, and if you see and come up, the way I see the 2 aspects of it, for customer is the transparency and the trust, and for the within internal customer with the employee and staff, which is the empowerment of them to serve the better, customer better. So when I say empowerment, it's about the efficient systems, efficient responsibility, their ability to respond quickly, their systems visibility around it, and why we are doing all these things. So this becomes a backbone when we see an end customer enters into a shopping experience and he buys the things. He wants to know whether the product is ethically sourced or not. How do you bring that information to it? Today we see Swiggy model. You deliver a guy, you have a fully vaccinated stamp on the screen. That brings your confidence into it. That brings that, okay, I want to buy through this brand only. It's a visibility, but it's a simple information, but there is a whole lot of transformation has gone behind it. So I'll be speaking about it, more as we go on.
Sure, Santosh. I think those are very valid points and practical, impediments also, where there is no solution, there is no escape from the solution. And when you said it's a continuous process, digital transformation, that's what our topic also is, digital transformation, change beyond technology. My question to Anil ji and all of you would be, one, and then I'll come to the second one, Anil ji. First one, in succinctly, if you can answer, at what stage did you decide digital transformation? Now, please try to understand the question is, so not exactly, okay, day before yesterday or last year or 2 years back, but then, yes, we want to know at what is the situation where you take a call that, yes, because Shubhajit did mention about all those imperatives. So Anil ji, if I can ask you, and with your rich experience, at what stage did you decide that, okay, we'll have to go for a full-fledged kind of a digital transformation?
Thanks, Hitesh. I think it's a very, very pertinent question. Fortunately, Hitesh, you'll be surprised to hear from me when I say we actually had embraced the omni retail journey, not actually due to COVID. We actually had embraced this, in fact, about 3 or 4 years ago itself. I mean, I think I remember making a significant case study presentation in the RAI, actually, I think in Mumbai, a few years ago also. In fact, we actually had explained right from Kabir, actually, who was heading then the MD, in fact, of Landmark Group. We had explained actually like how the Landmark Group is actually going forward with the, tech-driven transformation and tech-driven omni journey. The reason for that is because we already had observed from, let's say, Singapore or even, UK or even most of the, US actually, retailers and so on. We already had seen what is going to come in was going to be a true omni retail actually. Only thing, COVID, in fact, accelerated the whole process. It gave a turbo charge actually to the whole journey. Otherwise, to say, in fact, the omni journey we had already kind of started, which was, obviously, it had to be driven through tech. I mean, it had to be actually a seamless experience from consumer point of view, because customer really couldn't care. I mean, in these days, like what, Shubhajit was also mentioning, in fact, customers actually, gone through a huge impact, transformation themselves. Their experience has gone through a transformation. They have become more impatient. They have become like, very, very demanding. I mean, they really couldn't care how much actually, like you do tech-wise, manual, all those things. For example, let's go back around 7-8 years ago and then ask the, my customer, which is a young lady, young mother, madam, do you know what is a warehouse? She wouldn't have a clue. I mean, she wouldn't know anything about supply chain management. She wouldn't know anything about, delivery partners or logistics and all of that. Today, you ask her, she knows exactly what is pick, pack and ship. What is actually track and trace. She knows what is a warehouse actually activity. She knows who's a delivery partner, who's a delivery associate. She is highly informed right now. I think all of these things actually were part of this transformation journey, in fact. So therefore, our omni retail, we started this journey almost like, 4-5 years ago, and then kind of, we started actually interconnecting or interweaving various parts of the business. Let's say the endless aisles came into the picture, or the using the tablet actually came for the, customer. In fact, in case if it is not available in the store, we were able to, actually order that online and then deliver it to her store, doors actually, and so on. So this overall journey started there. But then there were a lot of loose bits. And let me be also a little bit candid and then say whether the board or the management were also not ready to listen to the demands of the supply chain team or the tech team when we said, oh, by the way, omni retail will require 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things. But come COVID, Now supply chain is the first topic being discussed in the boardrooms, right? And
Absolutely.
servicing the consumer demand, like what actually you mentioned and Shubhajit also mentioned. You lose the customer today, you have lost her forever. So we can't afford that. Therefore, whatever actually the investments actually that have to be made, be it infrastructure, hardware, or the applications, tools, business intelligence, all of those things kind of got a turbocharge. And then thanks to COVID actually, and it kind of accelerated the whole journey. But then we were already there. So the key team members were there. And then the key, the milestones were already earmarked and so on. So overall, I think we were in a good position to kind of exploit the COVID opportunity and then kind of, connect this, entire omni journey actually as seamless as what it is today. In fact, that's what we are able to do it.
Okay, you are in a good position. You had preempted the competition. Maybe let me put it that way, or you had the foresight to see that okay, this is the way digital transformation has to take place in our organization, so that the customer ultimately wins. And coming back to the customer, Satish, this question is for you. Santosh did mention about internal and external, customers and stakeholders. From an internal perspective, because see, here when we are talking about overall transformation, the organization has to be taken into consideration. Some problems or issues what Anilji was trying to mention, the problems are there across all the sectors, categories, organizations, and various levels in the organizations, right from top to bottom, and likewise reverse also. So with these internal impediments, how did you manage? Because we know the group has done considerable work and has come a long way in digital transformation. What were the impediments and how did you overcome them?
Sure. So I think obviously we had a base to start with, albeit it was pretty small, right? About mid to high single digits in terms of the whole omni revenue profile, and we had fortunately set up some amount of integrations with at least our own company-owned company exclusive stores, where we had a complete visibility of what the inventory is at the store level, and we could also get the inventory at the warehouse level through the integrations, right? So I think the first thing we realized that we had to do early in the cycle is to really get a single view of inventory for planning, for allocation, and for ATP purposes, right? I think it was also a realization that working with the online partners, they're pretty stringent on the SLAs, they're pretty stringent on the TAT that is actually needed in terms of the OTIFs or availability of the stock at a particular location, at a particular warehouse, on that particular unloading bay at that particular time. So these were some of the things that we had to kind of iron out primarily through integrations. And I think this is where the whole microservices architecture really comes to help, right? Because when you have to imagine journeys, you cannot imagine a journey as a monolith in terms of the entire end-to-end experience and all of that, right? Though that is important, but it's more about those micro journeys which actually define the movement of the merchandise from A to B, and how do you really actually regulate that through digital and technology, right? I think a lot of work that was done over the last, I would say 18 months or so, really focused on those journeys, right? And so that is from a supply chain perspective. Second thing is from a customer experience perspective. Obviously, we had a lot of basically buying a merchandise of our nature on the website itself was a pretty new experience, right? So our brand operations team had to really work on today what we have as SMUs, which are basically focused on an online for online type of a merchandise strategy, right? So that you're not confusing the customer saying that hey, by the way, you also get this online, and you might probably get it like at a 10% discount, right? That's not the point. The point is that you need to resonate with why you are selling that online, and it is actually only available online, and hence it actually makes a lot of sense for you to buy it online, right? So to enable the entire replenishment processes, your entire back-end article management down to that level, and ensure that these type of availability requirements that we have, commitments to the partners are met with, required a significant amount of rejigging of our technology, and of the way we even view data and how we start consuming data, right? So that's from a customer experience perspective. I think the benefit of all of this is it has really resulted in a surplus amount of customer intelligence, right? At least in a very raw form, because earlier you used to rely on one SAP or one Oracle system to actually churn out a bunch of data points, and then you had to somehow figure it out as to how do you really make sense out of all of that. But today your touch points with the customer has significantly increased, right? Because it's the online, it's the store, it's the entire channel distribution that we have. And how do you start making sense of all of this data in a more holistic sense, which actually gives you a single view of the customer? And how can you start predicting the next best move of the customer based on recency, frequency of purchases, and that kind of stuff is really the next big challenge that we will try to kind of delve upon, really getting data into insights, right? Broadly put. So that's those are broadly the impediments, and how we kind of addressed it, Dr. Hitesh.
Excellent. I think some excellent insights here. Managing micro journeys, each and every retailer will have to do that, and that is the micro journey part, and how to regulate those micro journeys through technology. I think this is one of the best insights, and you spoke about even enabling processes for customer journey, availability of your merchandise, that requirement, rejigging technology to ensure that. And you also spoke about customer intelligence, that customer has become more intelligent, and how do you manage your data and things like that. I think these are all the different parts which makes the whole piece come together, which is really digital transformation. With this, I would like to go to Balaji and take his views that managing 4,000 plus outlets. How do you do that? In fact, I have seen people struggling to manage two. And the question is not that. Question is, when you spoke about unified customer experience, how do you manage that unified customer experience as a brand Apollo? And and all our panelists have told that customer has learned, customer has got that intelligence. So their expectation also of customer service, availability, etc., has gone up. And how do you manage that, Balaji, through technology and transformation?
Yeah. Actually, what it has been done is, as Mr. Anil told, we also proactively started this initiative 3-4 years back. So when we start setting up our order management system, it has to be connected. All the 4,200 centers are our fulfillment centers for our customer. It is basically any order can go to any of our store and it has to get fulfilled. Maybe he comes offline or online. So that kind of setup, it has been already in place for us. And when this COVID times are there, we typically faced one of the biggest challenge, as Satish told, is availability. That is out of the stock scenario in our network. So this challenge, we have to bring in a real-time inventory visibility for the customer, so that the customer, that order allocation go rightly to the right pharmacy, so that that delivery and other thing could be handled very efficiently. So for that, what we have to do is we have to build a kind of a microservices and other thing from our retail system, and bring the data into the central cloud for 3.5 crore, because the pharmacy retailing is typical with other retailing. If you go by the batches, we have around 3.5 crore line always available, that kind of inventory. So it has to generate a built-in algorithm. It has to identify the right outlet, right stock, right availability, and we have to give a lot of visibility to our Apollo 247 app. It is a complete ecosystem app of our group level. It start from the video consultation, or medicine delivery, or a diagnostic, or a PHR all together in that. So the medicine delivery part is connected to Apollo Pharmacy. So whenever the customer is getting a TAD or anything, the real-time availability, he has to get it in the mobile also. So for this, we have used a lot of microservices, and we set up some kind of a SD-WAN update in all the outlets so that we could able to connect all together, kind of a MPLS system, all the data synchronizing centrally, and the backend anyway, the ERP and other thing could be able to manage the overall setup. So we did the COVID also well managed. So all the spikes, it could be able to manage the demand and other thing well. Mr. Th, your voice.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Balaji, for that. Shubhajit, you saw Mr. Anil, Mr. Balaji, and even Mr. Satish talking about various things that they have done for digital transformation. Now, when you do this kind of digital and digitization, can you tell us, Shubhajit, like which are the areas that are delivering the best returns, ROI? Because ultimately the organization wants the ROI. We do all these things, but at the end of it is value, generation of value, creation of value. So, what are your thoughts on that, Shubhajit?
Sure, Hitesh. So one, I think underlying theme that has been spoken by all the speakers here is customer experience, because at the end of it, it is about meeting expectations or exceeding expectations of consumers, so that they keep coming back to you. I think digitization and spend on the CX part. Now, whichever part of CX that is, it could be in terms of let's say personalization of the catalog. It could be in terms of enabling the fulfillment and the delivery process to make it more efficient. Whichever part you kind of invest in, it has a implication on the customer experience. And we recently did some studies, and Forrester kind of did that study, and happy to quote that, roughly more than 100 to 150 million is the kind of benefit that people have seen having invested in customer experience as a pillar during this period. And this is like last 14 to 16 months, right? This data is roughly for Asia, but typically I would also imagine that India would have a similar kind of a lookout. So one is that to kind of, Satish, I think, mentioned many touch points have increased, and maybe the retailer was not covering for all those touch points earlier. Now, as you cover up all those touch points and have something to, respond to at those touch points, there are more chances of conversions at those touch points. So that eventually will increase experience and will increase conversions. The second key thing I would say is definitely supply chain, because for a lot of retailers, I think if you look at any business, there's a front office, mid office, and a back office, right? And if these three parts don't seamlessly integrate and talk to each other, there would be missing links. And again, Anil or somebody talked about visibility, supply chain visibility. Unless you have that visibility, you can only respond as a business if you have visibility and you have data coming up, and that's right data and right insights coming from the right parts. So supply chain is again another space where people have prioritized and modernized. What will be interesting to note is, we have noted that, we use this jargon a little loosely, digital transformation, right? Now, there are two connotations to it. There is digitization, which is, there is a process, you make it more robust, more efficient by putting in digital elements to it. And there is transformation, you can do things in a different way. So there was a previous way of doing it, and then you completely transform and make it better. We actually have seen during this time that transformation and grow kind of projects have come down, because people are not trying to change radically. People are trying to put in digitization spend to actually oil the the machinery which is already there, so that it kind of gives back more buck, for the money that's put in. So those are the broad areas. I would also kind of touch upon in terms of where the spend is happening and returns are coming. Dynamic pricing, promotions, very personalized couponing. All of this is also seeing a lot of returns during this period.
Yeah, thanks, Shubhajit. Santosh, my next question is to you. what are the unique business drivers, for digital transformation? You can take any industry and, give an example also about where do you think are these unique business drivers?
Yeah, so let me start with like previous question which you asked. The business outcome mainly five: customer experience, your increased revenue, reduced cost, your time to market, your improved efficiency. But these are like internal driving factors. But if you see from customer perspective, what's driving those industry to for people to come and buy things for any fashion apparel or food and beverage or any other. So I come from food and beverage, so I'll give a glance of it, and fashion law, so I'll touch upon it. So I see five major drivers for this. First is the convenience, the transparency, the personalization, the safety, and sustainability. So these are the five buckets under which we primarily influence the change, whether it's a digital transformation, whether it's cultural or physical. But these are the five drivers that we see any request coming from customers. So if you talk about convenience, the simple payment system across inside store and outside store online, the synergy of it having online platform around it, and if people able to make it through a wallet, through their banks, through UPI, anywhere, the synergy of it. If you use frictionless retail, going to retail without touching anything, you can do a payment through card. We have seen those technologies available. If you talk about in terms of transparency, people would like to know from where this product has arrived, who has made this, is it a genuine peeler, is it organic or inorganic, right? If you come from fashion industry, they want to know from where this yarn is coming, where this cotton is coming, who made this, is it Indian manufacturer or is it outside, right? And then in terms of transparency internally, the omni-channel fulfillment is a big, and I think every panelist has said single view of inventory is the need of the hour. A lot of people don't have it, but that is one single internal exercise that everyone should do. And I think we recently did for one of the major retailers in India. We have right now around 18 millions live RFID for them working around to give them single view of inventory instantly. Earlier, this used to be year exercise for them. Now they can do it within 2 minutes. They get to know their inventory. Now, if you talk about personalization, huge area for customer experience. If you see the top line margin, if you see today everyone has spoke of customer experience, the hyper personalized target campaign, the personalized products around it. If you see the entire journey of how to acquire a customer. So I'll give you a simple number. To acquire a customer, it takes around 5 to 25 times more than having an existing customer. So loyalty becomes a big play. And then we all know about 80-20 rule, where 20% of the 80% revenue is coming from your 20% core loyal members, and that's where the loyalty is driving. How do you make sure that loyalty platforms are live and running and they are catering to their loyal customer? How do you personalize things for them? So Shobhaji mentioned about catalogs and personalization. We have seen hyper personalized products being and offers being made to the customer so that they come back repeatedly and buy. We have seen today's time the customer analytics, customer 360-degree platforms that we have that to give you end-to-end visibility around your customer. Within, we have today, we have platforms to make it enable within 10 days on your brand, on your organization, to help you discover the customers around it and the entire journey of it. Social demographic intelligence, shopping history, customer 360 analytics around it. What he likes, it's like everything around it you get to know in a single platform. If you talk about the safety part of it, the payment system where you don't have to touch anything, it's created that requirement. How do you make sure the condition monitoring in cold freezers it's happening? How do you make sure the rules and regulation compliance is happening and it's visible to end client, but your internal customer as well? The food testing market is a big market right now. How do you cater that through your digital transformation? How do you cater that requirement? If you talk about sustainability, you have a green delivery system. How do you track those numbers and show it as an organization that you are driving and you're saving this much fuel, and how are you making sure your organization carbon neutral? So because the end loyal customer want to attach to the brand which are sustainable. They want to know what the brand is doing around green initiatives. They want to associate with themselves with such brands. So this becomes as important pillars for organization also to replicate and inform their end customers about it, and then this helps to gain loyalty. These are 5 broad buckets that we have been seen in fashion. Definitely Anil sir has already spoken about it. The variety, the seasonality, the SKU rationalization play a very important part. that how often your new clothes are coming, how, based on your season, how your patterns are changing. So these are very, very promising topics that we see and we discuss with our end customers.
Thanks, Santosh. We are at the fag end of the webinar here today, and this is I can say this is the last question to all of you. When we started work on ReTechCon close to 6 months back, and we have interacted with more than 120 plus CIO, CTOs, etc., retail owners, promoters, etc., to curate this session. And digital technology, these were the words that each and every one did say, whether you talk about CRM, loyalty, payments, so on and so forth. So this one question to all of you is, as a final question, is what would be your top 3 priorities? Okay, from you can take it from an organizational perspective, or you can answer from a CIO, CTO perspective, that these are my top 3 priorities for this year. Since we are talking about specifically digital transformation, I'll start with Anil ji. Okay, what would be your top 3 priorities?
So Hitesh, thanks for the question. And I guess, undoubtedly, 3 things what come to my mind is, for sure, the customer connect is the ultimate actually kind of a driving KPI and intent actually for any retailer, any business for that matter. How to kind of, keep that engagement going with the customer, because as some of my co-panels actually are talking about, customer loyalty, while it is a nice thing to know, customer loyalty is also the most probably unreliable in the sense, you can't take it for granted, because things can change, just like that. And then whether it's a greenhouse emission or a veganism or, some, problems actually at the back end or whatever, the opinions can change very, very quickly. So you need to kind of keep on engaging with them, and kind of how do you maintain that customer connect in a proactive manner, which will help your business. That's the first one actually. Second one, undoubtedly, what has actually the COVID and then post-COVID has actually, what has really taught us is to become agile. I mean, agility is nothing new actually for us as a business or as a community, right? I mean, we all have been living with the just-in-time concept or synchronous manufacturing in the automotive. I mean, automotive is probably the best example for agility, right? How can you keep on making a van after a car, after a 4-wheel drive, after a sports model, things like that, right? So it's actually the ultimate, probably the level of agility, which is what has to now be adopted by the retailers per se. Because in retail, we were efficient in many, many pockets, but then as a, value stream, we were probably a little, reluctant to actually embrace the journey. But COVID has really taught us how to be agile, which means you will actually have a very, very, less, in fact, fat or less, in fact, excess inventory. And also your movement of inventory also will be really on top. Third thing is actually obviously the tech side of it. So you got to keep on adopting to the new technology, new versions of actually the, technology upgrades and so on, so that you're always keeping on top of the journey. Those are the 3 things actually I would say.
Thanks, Anilji. Customer connect, or loyalty, agility, and tech adoption or tech updation. That is from Anilji. Satish, what would be your top 3 priorities?
Yeah, I think, this is obviously a once in a decadal or a lifetime opportunity to kind of do what we are doing, in terms of the way we, sell and experience with the customer. So I think, it would be really a mess if we don't focus on everything around the process, right? Because it as the saying goes, right, you cannot fit a Ferrari engine into a say an ambassador car and hope that it will start driving like a Ferrari, right? So obviously it's not about just the horsepower that you bring in terms of technology and tools and stuff like that, but it's about how structurally you are enabled as an organization, how enabled you are from a process perspective as an organization. And we have seen this very often, right? The same technology stack across 2 organizations work in a very, very diametrically opposite way, with absolutely, sometimes even diminishing returns in some cases and a very, very compounding return in another case, right? So it's all, we have enough case studies in front of us. So I think fundamental to all this is because we have not changed the mental model of the way we look at the process, right? So what does an OTIF mean for me as an organization is very important to me. It's not about it is of course about on time in full, but did I actually get the right size, right cut, right, and did I have a recourse to get that if I was not able to actually get it fulfilled at the right time through some kind of a surrounding process which will actually enable me to kind of address the demand and make sure that a bad OTIF does not result in a bad customer experience, right? So I think it's that thought process which actually makes it real. And a lot of what we do is really in kind of bridging that gap, right? So it's about breaking the process silos and kind of bridging the functions in a way where technology can actually play a more meaningful role. So that's point number one on process, right? I think the second most important thing is when things change so fast, I don't think we should ever plan for a 2-month, 3-month, or a 6-month kind of a project, right? It's all about learning fast, failing fast, and then moving on into subsequent sprints and journeys, so that while you have the end goal clearly etched in terms of a milestone, but really those in between interim milestones and how do you really measure them, and how do you evaluate them, and how does it really help you march towards the final goal is a very important component. And especially in the context of technology changes, the opportunities that you have to do a more asset light investment into technology itself today, so that you can start experimenting with certain options and doing it in quick sprints. I think that really opens up the learn fast, fail fast kind of a mindset, right? So to me, that would be a second opportunity from a implementation perspective, right? And of course, third, last but not the least, and my pet peeve is essentially the data, right? Because everything that we are doing today is all going to boil down to how do you start utilizing that into decision making, not just for your next season or your next journey, but how does it really holistically pan out, right, in terms of product, customer, supply chain experiences, and then what type of democratization of data that you have done within the organization, so that it is not about somebody sharing a report or some data stream with across functions, but it's all about capturing them at the source and then nurturing them and harvesting them and building upon them as some kind of a domain related repository, right? So that that you have a fallback for data driven decision making, be it a supply chain decision or be it a customer experience decision or whatever, right? So I think that's the to me, those are probably the three larger opportunities that we need to be addressing now. Yeah.
Thank you, Satish. One is process, second is learn fast, fail fast, third one is data driven decision making or data management, big or small. With this, Balaji, what would be your top 3 priorities?
Yeah, our priorities basically mostly on the customer preference and personalization, because now the data and data layer, we are becoming more agnostic and we could able to bring in a lot of data. So personalized recommendation engine, that will be our first preference, and second we'll be working more on the BCP plan and other thing what we are setting up, and third, overall we'll be planning for a more speed and agility in the front end and in-store digitalization part that we are moving in. So that area will be our focus area.
Excellent. Santosh, your 3 points for you. So for Santosh and Subhajit, you all work with so many retailers across the categories, sizes, formats. So you can give this answer from a CEO's perspective as well as from your own perspective. That's fine. Santosh.
Okay. So for me, I think with the data and the kind of tons of data that we are gathering with the transformation exercise we are doing, and a lot of apps are out there, it becomes a responsibility at organization level to keep it safe, and privacy and security is one of the so this indirectly affects the customer trust. So again, I'm coming from customer experience point of view, because these are important. We don't say it. See, if in that discussion we didn't touch upon security and privacy, but because they are taken for granted that this is bare minimum. Above this, what you offer to us, right? But this is a major exercise for some of the organization out there, right? So customer trust is first at most, I would say, and whatever takes inside it. The loyalty, hyper personalization is second. The efficiency, and when I say efficiency, your resilient supply chain around it, your agile processes around it, everything falls under it. Efficiency is at most important for internal stakeholders, because it directly affects your customer, lead times and other, how do you serve your customer better. And it provides you ability to respond faster in situations where, uncertainty lies. And that's what is all about, your resiliency.
Okay. Thanks, Santosh. Privacy, loyalty, and efficiency. Shubhajit, final question to you, and you please share your three priorities also. And I would request you to share it from a CEO's perspective, that what's going on in his mind today.
Yeah. So Hitesh, I think the way the CEOs are articulating priorities is in three stages, mostly from a tech perspective and a tech spending perspective. So the first would be kind of integration, because there are different disparate systems. A lot of systems have been built, but some of them don't talk to each other, don't give that holistic visibility across the value chain. So that's the first one to solve, because the building blocks are there, but you need to kind of connect them to get seamless information. The second would be a layer on top, which is like automation. So whatever processes you have certain extent of automation today, you automate more, because you want to make these processes people independent. You want to make them more democratic, to be able to cater to a larger segment of customers, and so on and so forth. So more automation, so that a lot of problems get solved by the systems themselves, and consumers come in and so, store personnel or retail personnel come and solve for the rest of it. And the third would really be that intelligence layer. So how do you invest in AI, ML, data science, etc., to kind of make systems more intelligent, get more richer insights, and therefore be able to take more focused action to resolve certain things. So I think this is the kind of layer that a CEO is seeing and trying to invest today.
Sure. So I think we have got agility, loyalty, data. All these are common points amongst all our panelists today. Automation is one, BCP plan, agility as mentioned, customer preference, personalization is another thing. Processes is what we all have spoken about, and tech adoption and update. So there are one or two questions which I thought I will take before we close this. That's the reason I thought, since we have just touched 5, I would like to take at least one question. What are the roadblocks to tech-driven change in an organization that a retailer must address first? What are the roadblocks to tech-driven change? I will ask any one of you to answer this in a holistic way, because we have already short the time. So in succinctly, if somebody can answer the roadblocks to tech-driven change. Anyone?
Yeah, I can pick that up, Dr. Hitesh. So
Sure.
I think that this is exactly the question which actually keeps us occupied and busy, right? Probably the only reason why we are even employed, right?
That's why Shubhajit and Santosh are here to help us out. And so yeah, please.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very pertinent question, and as I said earlier, any tech-driven change, in my opinion, cannot be a big bang, intimidating change, right? It has to be a very as subtle as possible, and it has to be as quick as possible in a very measurable way, where people kind of understand that we are kind of, irrespective of who it is, whether it can be the CEO or whether it can be somebody who's kind of helping you to implement it, or the end user, right? So it's about making it more digestible, making it more benefit oriented in a more short run, and then that helps you in two ways actually, right? One, it actually helps you contain any risks of things going too much out of the track, right? And second thing is, it actually helps you calibrate the expectations of the users in terms of how do you actually get to the journey, and how far you are away from the journey at some point in time, right? So I think at the end of the day, everybody wants some amount of predictability and some amount of risk averseness in the way that they actually approach these projects, especially if it's a budget or a finance that is coming from the business. So as long as you are able to provide that comfort, through what the journey looks like, and what the potential impediments are and where they need to be part of the solution, and not all I think if you articulate that and make it as subtle and as short and sweet in terms of a sprint, I think it always helps the cause a lot. I mean, nothing is like foolproof, but at least these are some tricks which has worked well.
Thanks, Satish. With this,
I would like to just add.
Sure, Santosh.
Yeah, I'll just add. So one of the key things that I've seen in my experience is people tend to, like, for example, like they build a product, then they try to put on their employees saying that use it, deliver it, transition yourselves to this product, right? But the main essence of entire product is to make people more efficient. Sometimes what happens in a tech-driven company is they're so focused into technology and changes around technology that they forget the people in the stakeholders which are going to use it. You have to bring stakeholders upfront in the design stage to make sure the acceptability increases, and it has to be gradual phase-wise implementation. It's not like you build one product completely and you put it right there in front of let's say HR to say run your HR systems tomorrow. It doesn't happen that way. I have literally seen this in my experience. A full-fledged product getting failed just because poor acceptability around people, and it's like product is for the internal use, not even for external use. So I would just recommend that one change that is like be more have a team spirit around it. We have a stakeholders involved early in the design phase so that the output is more acceptable and the feedbacks are welcome there. And this makes entire journey, as Satish already mentioned, the sprint is already 2 weeks, 4 weeks, where all the stakeholders are involved upfront, and they ensure that product is moving ahead in the line, the right state with the correct user stories.
Sure. Thanks, Shubhajit. You also raised last to comment from you, Shubhajit, for this.
I think, Hitesh, one thing that needs to be kept in mind as we are, this retail tech is actually going to a much wider segment of customers, a different strata of consumers. The tech needs to be simple. It needs to be simple for them to able to easily adopt and use it. It doesn't matter how fancy the tech is. It has to be really usable and very, very easy to use. That's, I think, the most important thing to be kept in mind.
Thank you. So, friends, today we had a very exciting discussion, and the panelists deliberated on many things. The outcomes or the words, you can say the cloud words that I can talk about is backend integration, agile SCM, integration with social tools, resilience of business, unified customer experience, internal and external stakeholders, micro journeys, customer experience through process enablers, customer intelligence, data management, recency, frequency, convenience, transparency, safety, sustainability, loyalty, personalization, then tech adoption and updation, process management, data management, BCPs, and privacy and efficiency. Apart from that, intelligence, layout of AI, ML, and automation. So I think all these things were discussed in this 50 minutes, 55 minutes, or 1 hour that we had together. I thank all the panelists today for sharing their insights with us. It was an excellent and a great learning for me as well today. And I thank you for your participation and look forward to interact with you in the near future. Thank you very much.